Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, live in studio today, the Messenger Studios. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Today I have a special group of folks from Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, and they also own Alexander Funeral Home, which is part of our community. I guess it depends on how far you're willing to drive, but the drives are very short around here. I mean, you can be anywhere from 25 miles and you're in a whole new area. One of the greatest reasons why the Messenger is now covering more ground than what we used to, but it's businesses like this that we love to see in our community because they do a service for all of us. And let's get into it. Today, I'd like to introduce all of our guests, and we're going to start off by letting John Bruington, who is the owner of both funeral homes, along with Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, and Alexander Funeral Home. And this team that he brought together is amazing. So, John, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Stephen, for the opportunity to be here.
Yes, sir.
Share with you and the community who we are and what we do. My wife and I were both born to licensed funeral directors in Bomber. My dad was Elroy Bruington, and her father was Kenneth Hager, who later years was able to purchase the Hager Funeral Home. At the time, it was the Wright Funeral Home years ago. My dad worked with David Sturgeon, and until I was about 6, he worked there full time. So I think it kind of got in my blood. So that's it kind of followed me all the rest of my life through the years. My wife was a school teacher. She is my partner in the businesses, so we are a partnership there, and just want to thank her for putting up and dealing with the issues through the years. It's been interesting. So.
Sure.
I started out working for Kenneth and Lois Hager as a teenager, and I was there for a total of 15 years, 9 years part-time and 6 years full-time, and a situation appeared, and so I left there and went to work for Leslie Jenkins at the Jenkins Funeral Home. I was there for a total of 10 years, working for Leslie and Mary Lou Jenkins, and then from there we were able to purchase the Jenkins Funeral Home in January of 2001, which we are presently doing now.
So you're buying another funeral home right now?
No, the Alexander Funeral Home we have owned since 2007.
Got it.
I had a partner which is no longer with us.
Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Yep. So total working years in funeral service, licensed and apprenticeship, I've been doing it full time for over 40 years. It's been a very rewarding profession.
Yeah.
One you have to be passionate about.
Yes, sir.
We hope that our families realize that, can feel that when we're working with them.
You know, one of the things that I love about your company and the staff that I've come to know just in engagements, I know Bridget and I have communicated a couple of times. I've run into her at a few different events, but you guys are all about service to the family. And it's almost like y'all embrace them as one of your own, and you go through this emotionally with each one of them in all of the phases of preparation, whether it be in the early years when you're making a plan for your future or in the final stages. Do you ever get a vacation from the job?
For many, many years it was tough, but this day and age, we are able to take vacations. We encourage it, and days off and time for being off call.
Yeah.
But for probably 30 years of my life, it was 24/7.
That's what I'm
until we got a time to go away or get a day off occasionally, that type thing. So I'm glad everybody can have their time now to be able to be with family and recoup and then come back refreshed.
Well, nobody ever wants to talk about the idea of the end of life and our life cycle. Everybody wants to talk about the newborns and all that other stuff, but it is a reality of life every day that we have to, that this is, I mean, we don't just go and put wooden boxes up and throw people in the ground anymore. It's not like the Westward Movement and the Civil War. And our families are much larger, and we're not spread across the planet, and it's easier to get to one another when a time of tragedy occurs. But even in its advanced stages, you guys sure do offer a lot of services besides what everybody thinks of in a funeral home. Could you elaborate a little bit on what part of that business you like the most?
Well, the business is so, we wear many hats. We're business people, we're embalmers, funeral directors, we organize, we work with families, and we work in the communities, we work with pastors, churches. I've kind of liked the whole spectrum of it, and it's been a blessing to be able to do that, to see how we can help a family through a situation and then be friends down the road. Our business is unique because we meet a lot of nice people, and we make a lot of good friends through the years.
Oh, I can imagine. And I love this about our community. We have a very Christian-based community. All the churches really do seem to pull together, even in our darkest hours and in our brightest hours. Feather, I'd like to introduce you. What is your relationship to the funeral home, and how did you get involved?
I decided that I wanted to be a mortician when I was pretty young, and there was one female mortician where I grew up, which was in Utah, and she was not very helpful. She said, "You can't do this. This is a man's job." And so
Well, that's not good in today's time.
No, it's not.
Probably not helpful in competition with
Right.
trying to figure out gender either. But
That's
you know,
right.
but yeah.
So I had talked to her because everybody told me I needed to, so I did, and it didn't go very well.
Yeah.
So I moved to Missouri, and I lived in Missouri, and while I was there, I had been applying for jobs at funeral homes, and I had a gentleman who called me and offered me a job, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "Well, why did you apply?" I said, "Because I'm going to be a mortician." And he said, "Okay, well, why don't we have you do that then?" And so he hired me for an apprenticeship in Missouri, and I started my first apprenticeship in Missouri. I worked with an older gentleman. He's from Alaska. He was an Indian. He was the first one I embalmed with, and he was very interesting. I learned a lot of different things culturally from him. And then when I met a Meade County boy and moved here, I called all the funeral homes around here. And I said, I'm in mortuary school. I've been doing an apprenticeship. I would like to continue that. And there weren't very many people that were very nice to me. So I called John, and John was the first one who said, "I'd love to have you, but I don't need you."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay." He said, "But if you don't mind, I'll call you when I need some help," because I was in mortuary school. So,
Sure.
And I had been going to school in a different location. So a lot of the trade things that we do are general to your area because people around you teach you. A lot of it is mentorship. I mean, a lot of it. If you don't have a good mentor, you're not going to be a good embalmer.
Now, I'd assume with 40 years of experience, over 40 years of experience, you're probably getting a lot of good mentorship.
I'm getting a lot. But when I started with John, it was over 21 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
So it was a long time
Well, when
ago.
you said you started young, I was thinking it was like a couple of years ago, but okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
I started, I moved here in 2003.
Okay.
And I worked in Missouri 2001. So I'd been there for about 2 years before I moved here working and embalming.
Yeah.
And so John called me and said, "Well, can I still have you come and help with embalming and things like that if we need some extra hands?" So I came and I drove a hearse once, and I remember who I buried that day. It was the very first funeral I went on. And then he asked me to come help, and I remember we did a special technique because the gentleman who'd passed away, it was a kind of a traumatic death, and so we did a special technique for embalming, and it turned out really, really well.
Good.
And so we were happy. We worked really well together. He was a very good teacher, and he also asked me questions and let me show him what I knew from Missouri, which was awesome. So we worked really well together. Well,
So you're a good teacher too then, huh, John?
He is. He's an excellent teacher. He is. And I think that's probably as big of a passion as being a mortician as teaching it, I think, for him.
Yeah, I would think, John. So you said you had learned it was a family business when you were younger, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was that life like growing up?
Well, my dad left when I was 6, but I loved to go over there with him,
Yeah.
put around. And Mr. Sturgeon, David Sturgeon, he was a very nice man, and he spoiled me with Cokes and candy, and
Gotcha.
just loved being there. So.
Awesome. So Feather, when you finally, you've been doing this now since 2003. Now that you're at this stage, what are you finding that is the best thing that you can tell families in advance versus when it finally happens? What's the thing that you've learned most about this industry?
The best thing is to talk about it and plan it
Yeah.
before somebody dies, because there's a lot of situations that our families have nowadays that they didn't used to have: blended families, mixed families, crazy different dynamics. And if you talk about it beforehand, then there's not as much fighting
Drama.
about what would she want, what would he want, or
Right.
this is what we're going to do, this is not what we're going to do. And I found that if I can get people to come in and write it down,
Yeah.
not always pay for it, but at least write it down so somebody knows what you want, it's very, very helpful.
I have a personal experience on that as well, of losing a loved one and didn't know what to do. And I was the one on the bag to take care of everything, and when you're like that, and, I think God gets involved when he needs to, especially when it's somebody he's bringing home. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, when it happened, the priest, I didn't know that this person was going to a new church and had been going and was making the bread for when they were doing this stuff. And he said when this person joined the church, it was our faith to be buried and not cremated. And I was like, well, that just made life a lot easier, because all I ever understood was the other. And before you make that fatal decision, because there's not a lot of time when this happens. There's a lot of steps that have to occur between the hospital, the funeral home, the place where you want to bury the person. I would only assume that after doing this for so many years that people are just, what do I do? What do I do? How does that become part of the job for you now and anybody else in the industry?
That is the job. The job is to take somebody's hand when they're emotionally distraught,
Yeah.
when they are facing some really tough decisions, and narrow it down for them and say, this is what's important right now. This is our decision now. And when we get done with that, we'll move on to the next one. And we are there to walk you through every single step.
Yeah.
And if they allow us to walk them through every step, everything will get taken care of. We're like event coordinators that do it on a dime. We can do it. If they will just let us walk them through a little bit at a time, we can get everything done that needs to be done.
Very good. I'd like to introduce Cheyenne. Cheyenne, you're in an apprentice. Cheyenne, left seat on the left. You're in an apprentice. No, I'm sorry. That's not you. Lauren, you're in the apprenticeship right now, right? I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
If I just read my notes, I would have gotten this right. So you're in an apprenticeship now. You're where they were 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. Introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are if they meet you at the funeral home, and then or at one of these, and then what this is like in the apprenticeship.
My name is Lauren Bollinger. I'm 25. I've been working with John for a couple years now. I think I was 21 when I started. So, of course, going into it young is very different because you're still trying to figure yourself out, but you know that this is what you want to do,
Okay.
right? I live in Irvington. I think I said that. I don't know. I live in Irvington. I'm getting married in December.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It's crazy. I have 2 dogs, but I'm going to be living in Brandenburg. I graduated from North Hardin High School in 2017 and graduated from Mid-America College of Funeral Service in 2022. I lived in Radcliffe my whole life, but my family is from here. And I still have family that lives here. My grandparents are Ron and Roberta Hockman. Brother Papaw is a preacher and has been a preacher for over 50 years, which is, of course, a blessing in my life. But I remember when I was young, I tell this story a lot, so I mean, I'm sure everybody's here has heard it. Ooh. But I remember from the time that I could drive, I would go with Papa, and even before that, I would come with Papa to the funeral home, and whether it was like our family that passed away, because my family has all been buried through here. So whether it was our family that passed away, our friends, or people that he knew, whether he was doing a service or not,
Right.
I would go with him, and we'd walk in, and we would always see Johnny behind the desk. And so he would wave and come out and talk to us, and it was just so nice because he knew. He would ask about us by name. Like
Sure.
I was a kid. I was like 9 or 10. You know, I was young. And he'd ask about our family by name, and ask how we were doing, and remember important things about us. And it's kind of like come full circle now, because now I get to be the one behind the desk to ask about people, and that's something that really drew me to work with John, is like how much he genuinely cares.
Right.
Like not only for the families, but the people that he works with as well, because there's, of course, if you've had other jobs, you might work for people who don't care, and it's very obvious. But Johnny is nothing but kind and sincere, always.
Well, and again, the feeling you get, going back to what Feather was saying, and then John in his opening remarks is, when you're at the last minute and you don't know how to party plan and you're emotionally distraught, you know, having that focus that it's like this is, we feel like we're family when we tend to this problem, and helping you resolve this issue, having that family atmosphere probably makes a huge difference when you're the person on the other end of receiving the services, right? And trying to get through that process. I mean, emotionally, we all know it takes an emotional toll. But the way you guys handle it is just, I mean, you can't say brilliant. You can't say it's kind. You just have to say it's family. You know what I mean? Without the drama family or this family, it's the calm family, the family that knows you, or at least takes the time to get to know you, so that they can help you put this loved one to rest during your time of trouble. Sorry, Cheyenne, I introduced you out of order there, but going back to you, you know, what do you do at the funeral home, and how long you been there?
So I'm a licensed funeral director and embalmer. I'm Cheyenne Woodrum. I have been here 3, almost 4 years. I was lucky enough to come work for John. They kind of got stuck with me. I called them one day and asked them if they would be able to do my or if I could do my clinicals with them, because when you go to school to be a funeral director and embalmer, you do have to do clinicals for your embalming and for your funeral directing to kind of get to know the job, because it is not one that you can learn by the book. So I called, and they answered the phone the nicest, and I'm really one of those people. If you're nice on the phone, then I probably want to work with you. If you're not nice, I don't really want to work with you. So when Kenny was working there, he answered the phone, and he was very nice, and he was very chill. So I said, hey, can I, come and do my clinicals with you all? Can we meet? And he said, yeah, let's talk about it. So he talked about it, I'm sure, with John and Feather, because they are the big bosses. And as John will say, he's not the boss. So I call him boss all the time. But I came and I worked with them a little bit while I was still in school, and then I got through my clinicals and I went through my testing, and I became an apprentice, and I was an apprentice for a year with them. I learned an extreme amount from everybody I work with. I mean, a lot of my embalming, obviously, I learned from Feather and John, and even Kenny himself. And, and then funeral directing, I've learned from Tim and John and Feather and everybody. So they teach very well, and they are really good at teaching, and it's really wonderful. So now I'm licensed, and they make me do the hard work and do the actual, the job myself.
I gotcha.
Them in the background, but it's great. It's wonderful, and it's a wonderful place to be. So
very good. I'll turn it over to Tim. Tim, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll get to Bridget, and then we'll kind of get into some more of the discussion. So, Tim, tell us who you are and how do you come into the fold?
Oh, well, I'm Tim Goodwin. I'm a licensed funeral director and also have my insurance license. I guess you might say that I am the pre-need specialist and insurance specialist, even though I don't think you're ever a specialist in any of those things. It's always kind of on-the-job training.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what I do.
Well, I was kind of going to get into that, so I'm kind of glad you had talked about that a little bit. To Feather's discussion, probably the biggest thing that comes up is when you wait to the last minute for life to happen, you can get a large amount of sticker shock. And a lot of people misunderstand those costs that are associated with, or even how to navigate insurances. I know I experienced this, like even the little $2,000 life insurance policy that you had for having a bank account can become very helpful at the end of life. So when you get into all of that, how do you uncomplicate that for someone? Does that become a large part of the job?
Oh, you opened up a big can of worms there. I mean,
well, keep it small. You don't have to go for the whole can.
Some people prepare, some people don't prepare.
Right.
All right. Some people, people take out life insurance policies, but really, what is the life insurance policy? It's really death insurance, is what it is. I deal with a lot of people that are trying to preserve assets when people have reached the phase in life where they can no longer take care of themselves.
Sure.
And so I help a lot of families stay Medicaid compliant.
Okay.
And
that is a big can of worms.
And you start dealing with a lot of insurance companies and jumping through a lot of hoops.
Now, I'm not going to go too deep into Medicaid, Medicare, all of that stuff, but some interesting facts about Medicaid and Medicare is now, if you retired, you got a pension from a company, and they agreed to be an insurance provider. Well, once you switch over to Medicaid, Medicare, a lot of those insurance providers that they promised you as part of a pension, if Medicaid or Medicare doesn't cover it, then they don't have to cover it. So when you start to trying to move on in life at your older age, it seems like something as simple as a tetanus shot could be an out-of-pocket expense, and other types of procedures or services that you would have found common under regular insurance before you switched to Medicaid. So when you try to make people compliant, I would assume that there's barriers like that example. It doesn't necessarily play true everywhere you go, but I would assume that there are those types of hurdles as you progress. But probably more like Kentucky is set, so this area becomes easier versus if you go to Texas or Oklahoma or Canada. I don't know.
I mean, once you reach, you can qualify for Medicare before you're 65, but once you're 65, you qualify for Medicare. Now, if you cannot afford the medications or the types of services that you need, then families will apply for Medicaid. A lot of times that comes into play when people are having to go into a nursing home.
Okay. Does Medicaid or Medicare services help in the death benefits in any way?
Now, you're talking Social Security death benefit?
Or any, I don't know.
Well, Social Security will only pay $255 to a surviving spouse.
Okay, so that's it.
But and then otherwise, it'd be something else. If you took out, other types of insurance. If you took out a long-term care insurance policy, or you have life insurance policies.
So, do you sit down with clients in the early stages, early enough to sit down and lay this out for them so that they have a plan and a strategy? Does that become part of the business?
You hope that they do that, but a lot of times, you got families that come in and they've got to get it done now.
Yeah, because they didn't.
Their loved ones is already in a nursing home,
Yeah.
And they're trying to and they're trying to preserve assets to be able to cover their final expenses.
Yeah, or either that they're already trying to spend the life insurance policy and cutting back because they don't want to spend as much at the funeral home. I've seen that happen before.
Well,
Yeah, that's a horrible thing to talk about, but I'm sure it happens. Bridget, let's introduce you and let everybody know. I know that you are pounding sand every day, getting the word out and helping. So let's talk about you a little bit, and then let's get into some more discussion.
I'm Bridget West, and I provide our office support, a little bit of bookkeeping, marketing, whatever it takes. Obviously, I work visitations and services and things like that. Do a lot of the personalization of the services. We have Carlette, who's not here today. She does DVDs and books and all of that personalization, and I back her up when she's
Okay.
you know, she's part-time, so what she doesn't get done, I back up and I do all of that. We all clean, we all
Yeah.
do all of those things. We all work. Every service that happens during, our shift, we're all there doing all
Yeah.
of the same things. Everybody backs
That's
up
like the
on each other.
messenger. It's like baling wire and duct tape on a busy day. We pull it together, but we had no internet for 5 hours yesterday in the afternoon on a production day to get it to the printer this morning. And my phones were out until 8 o'clock last night. I didn't get out of here till probably about 9, and they were waiting for, once the internet came back on at 5, they were trying to shuffle through all the stories and move it around through the cloud and everything else. And it's crazy, right? Because we're all trying to pull together, but the job requires so much. The certifications, the licensure, all of that just to get to the status of a qualified person to perform these services. And not to mention to be able to be a qualified person, because you got to get certified, right? But to also have the years of experience to be able to be compassionate, kind, and considerate during this emotional time. I can only imagine. They should probably have you guys work for law enforcement to de-escalate situations. You know what I mean?
Definitely, John.
Right? They could probably send you in as the guy that talks everybody down and turns over their guns and surrenders the hostage negotiator. But I can only imagine, just like Feather was talking about, the emotions, especially cross-cultural emotions that are created from mixed families, diversified families, etc., or just, the Hatfields or the McCoys, right, of families. And we know they exist around here because we know that name, and much like you were talking about, where people have grown up their whole lives and know people by their first names. People are getting to know me by my first name, too. It's coming around pretty quick, but in a good way, I hope. But it just, when you've lived here your whole life, and I hear that all the time, I've lived in Meade County my whole life. That's awesome. Then you should know about Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, and then Alexander Funeral Home now, which is a new asset under Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home. See, I got it right. It's a lot to say and a mouthful, but each name represents a history of this organization that's built it to what it is today. John, you've heard everybody tell their story openly on this podcast now, and you can reflect over 40 years. What advice do you have for somebody, when you started, Lauren, at a young age? You said 21, you're now getting ready to get married. You said, I decided at a young age. You decided, Feather, at a young age that you want to do this. 20 years later, you're doing this. There is some young man or woman somewhere within the reach of this audio and video that is thinking, that's something I would like to do. What advice do you have for him, John?
Well, I started working for Kenneth and Lois Hager when I was 15, sophomore in high school. Didn't even have a driver's license. So my suggestion would be not to send an email or a text. Dress up, groom well, go knock on the door, and present yourself and say, I would like to work with you in this funeral home to gain experience or to see if I might like to go into the profession. That would be my advice.
I think that's great advice for almost any certifying profession because you don't know what you're going to get into, and it does cost a lot of money. From the school experience for all of you, and over the years of time, to you completed yours, you're in yours. What are you noticing in the differences between not only the local techniques that you learned from being in a local area like Feather had mentioned, but what are you learning that is from each other that is happening in education now that's different than John, per se, when you went through years ago? Anybody can tackle that.
I can tell you a major difference. When John went, it was all licensed people that taught. They were great teachers. It was like a little fraternity, and they took care of each other. When I went, it was kind of that way, but not completely. We all stuck together and whatnot, but there was still a lot of people that were not wanting to work with you. They don't want to share the whole recipe kind of thing. And what I noticed when they were in school and I was looking at their homework, the teachers from the school that was the same school that I graduated from and he graduated from, kind of, but the teachers were not all licensed funeral directors and embalmers. They were just regular teachers, and so they're trying to add a little bit of they're trying to lessen their expense by having all of this online education.
Adjunct professors.
It is a sad thing for them. I felt so bad when I looked at what they were learning and how they graded their papers and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a different experience. That's just what I know from watching them do theirs and from him and his dad telling me about theirs and a couple of the others, Daryl Simmons and Jim Ed. They all were part of what I call the Good Old Boys Club, and they helped each other.
Well, I could probably talk about our problem in education for hours, but you're now seeing it at the higher levels of education, at skilled trades and everything else. Why do I need to go to college for a degree and be an electrician when I just learned how to do everything I needed to know at the VOTEC? You know what I mean? Now, this is not a VOTEC job, so people, if you're listening to this, don't misunderstand. But this is a profession that's actually in the medical profession. You guys have to learn anatomy. You have to learn all of the vital organs, all of these things, because that's part of the embalming process. And I mean, not like we're King Tutankhamun and we're going to take everything, put it in a jar vase, and put you to rest with gold lined everywhere. But although some people can probably afford that, there is a lot more to this job. Bridget, you said you do a lot of the marketing stuff. What do you think is the number one thing? Everybody in this room is passionate, first of all, about every role they play for your organization, John. I think that's fabulous. But from the outside perspective, you run into people and you're always promoting early services, like get to go meet Tim way in advance and stuff. So
Pre-plan. I mean, if we can't get anything else across today, pre-planning your funeral is a huge thing that you should do as a gift to your children and to your family. Lauren getting married soon. She should tell her soon-to-be husband what she wants done whenever she passes, because we don't know that tomorrow is promised. It could be tomorrow. But pre-plan. Have the hard conversations that you don't want to have. It's just life. It's what we have to do. Yeah,
I as a personal example of that, I can tell everyone on this, and now that I own the Messenger under Mead Media Group, I can tell you that watching these obits almost every week, then when they come in and I see somebody that's my age at 52, you better be having pillow talk, you know what I mean, with your significant other, your children, especially if they're old enough to care for you. These are conversations that you need to have because it is an emotional saver. It's not going to save what will come or what has happened, but it is an emotional saver on your loved ones that you can't write a check for. Sparing them that decision. I would say it's almost like if I had to make a decision and you were in a hospital emergency room bed and I had to make the decision of whether you would stay on life support or not stay on life support, it's almost that vital, right? Because once the decision's made on how your remains are kept, whether they're cremated or buried in a coffin in the ground, what cemetery you're at, is a generational impact on how soon or how often you are visited, prayed for, your Christian connections, and all those other things. But again, I can't emphasize that if the experience is to come to Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, or Alexander Funeral Home, you are going to be treated as if you were one of the family. That everything that goes into your arrangements for your loved one, or even if it's the pre-planning for you, that you are going to get that compassion and care. I can tell you everything comes at a cost. There is nothing cheap in life, and you can't put a price tag on saving the emotional stress of a family.
And you know, a lot of people worry about that cost for their family, and they'll say things like, throw me in a pine box and put me in the river. But your family doesn't want to do that
No.
to you. They're not going to do that to you. Instead, they're going to sit in a room with us and debate back and forth what you wanted, what you would have really wanted.
Yeah.
So make those decisions and have those conversations. And yeah, you can make jokes about it. If, you know, we didn't make jokes in this industry, we'd all be a little crazy.
I'm sure y'all probably have a lot.
But nobody's getting thrown in a pine box in the river anymore. It's not legal. We can't do it.
No.
So talk about it and make actual real life decisions so that your family doesn't have to bear that burden.
Yeah.
It just makes things a lot easier.
Now,
So.
do they still make wooden caskets?
Oh yeah.
Solid wood.
Yes.
All right.
We have lots of beautiful wooden caskets.
Yeah.
too.
Now they.
Solid pallets.
Do you have to be buried in a vault if you're buried in the ground in Kentucky, or do
That
you just go
depends
right
on
in the dirt?
cemetery.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not actually a state law.
Okay.
It depends on the cemetery. Most cemeteries in Meade County have a rule or regulation that they do require an outer burial container.
Okay.
There are a few that do not. So it's possible to not have the outer
Yeah.
burial container.
So, you know, traveling around as a soldier in the Army for 32 years and moving around, I can, I know you said you've been doing this since 2003. So for me emotionally, since 2001, when the Twin Towers went down, I was in a profession in the Army that I never thought that would be my lifelong career, but it was, and it was recruiting. So on the front end of the Army's life cycle, finding somebody to join the Army, and then having to have had the experience, because we've been in a prolonged war for well over 20 plus years until they pulled out of Afghanistan. I can only imagine that those arrangements are very difficult, especially for a hometown in America. And I know that from traveling around and being in different states, those procedures for burial, like in Florida, you got to be in a vault because the what do they call that? Vitrification, the water rises and flows.
Groundwater.
Yeah, groundwater. But anyway, it's so different everywhere you go. I can only imagine that, okay, well, if you want this cemetery, you need this, and it's like this whole laundry list of things come out. That could be so overwhelming. So when you're dealing with these families, is it a one-on-one, or do y'all kind of go in together as a teammate with a teammate to help explain these things? Because I could imagine it gets confrontational.
We usually try and have at least two people. Sometimes when we get really busy, we have to do it with just one, but we always have people come in and check on us. But like we have a list of things that if they say they're going to go to this cemetery, we know we have to ask these questions. If they want to be laid out at a certain church, we know we have certain questions. So we kind of that's what the apprenticeship is for, is to learn those things, because it
Sure.
takes a long time. And so you go through the apprenticeship. Lauren has been doing it for long enough that now she can sit with families and start doing things. We're still there to support her. We don't leave, but
Yeah.
she is able to start doing those because she's sat through enough arrangements.
Yeah.
She has learned those questions.
Okay. Tim, going back to you real quick on planning and insurances and stuff like that. Do y'all do estate planning, or do y'all work with attorneys that do estate planning when you come across clients that are actually getting after this young enough to get into this conversation?
I don't really get into estate planning, but you know, there are some people that will come to us when they've been to an attorney.
Okay. And so do y'all get a lot of businesses from those types of estate planners, or how does that work?
We get some business. I mean, you know, just it really depends. You know,
Okay.
it really depends on the person and the individual, and
Yeah.
you know, we're all different, and we all have different wants and needs.
Sure. Okay. Is there anything that, from your perspective, that the people should know about? Especially, I mean, insurance has got to be like the toughest thing to navigate. What's the biggest thing that you find that people should know that they don't know?
Well, if you're applying for Medicaid in the state of Kentucky, the maximum amount of money that you can keep in your checking account is $2,000.
Wow.
So,
And also beneficiaries. Need to be updated.
Beneficiaries,
And-
make sure your beneficiaries
and,
are up to date.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
if you're if you're dealing with insurance, make sure you know who your beneficiaries are, and make sure that you give power of attorney to somebody when you get older.
Medical power of attorney or
Both.
power of attorney to act on
Both.
like legal. Okay.
Both. But you better make sure that you trust them explicitly.
Yeah. Right. It would be like your first child or something that very close to, I would assume, or something to that effect. Going back, and I'll start wrapping it up, but John, what is the thing that you think after 40 years of doing this industry and obviously having the unique opportunity to mentor so many people along the way, what is the thing that you want people to know about what Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, and Alexander Funeral Home have to offer our community?
As I said earlier, being part of the community with churches and being involved with organizations that provide services to our community, such as a chamber. We've done this for years. Just making sure, as we are a part of the community, that you can see that we are passionate about what we do, the care of our people, and making it as easy as possible when the time comes. They call, when the first phone call, like you said a while ago, we work through the whole process with them.
Yeah.
And we listen. We don't dictate. We try
Right.
to let them know what their options are and whatever area they want to go into. And if we do that, then we've done our job. And then when it's over with, we want to let them know that we're still out there if they ever have questions.
Right.
And we want to be part of their family because they're already part of ours. So,
Our families are our families forever.
yeah.
Yeah. It's an emotional time to go through.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
And our services don't end the day of the service either.
No,
No.
they don't. Something that we do every year is our service of remembrance. We do that around Christmas time, and we send out invites to every family that we've had that year. We make personalized photo Christmas ornaments of every person that we've served throughout the year.
Sure.
And we always do that the first weekend of December, so we'll be posting that on our Facebook soon if people would like to go out and search for Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home and Alexander
You say that much faster than I do. I try.
Try answering the phone. This is Bridget at Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home. How can I help you?
Yeah.
It
I got
takes a second to get it down.
It
But
does.
yeah, go out and find our Facebook pages and follow us and like our Facebook pages. We'll feed you at Christmas time and have a nice little party and
Good.
all that. So, and make sure you get your ornaments and yeah, do a lot of personalized services like that, from bookmarks.
Very good. Listen, I got to say thank you to all of you. John, it's been an honor to get to finally meet you in person. I think I got to speak to you a couple weeks ago on the phone. It's crazy how fast time flies in the community when we're all serving, right? And my hat's off to you guys for the years of service and the commitment that you make to our loved ones. I want to say thank you. And I can't promote enough to everyone on here, and I'll tell you again and again and again, you guys need to go and visit with somebody early. Don't wait till the last minute to go see the team here at Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home. How was that? Was that better? Yeah, or Alexander Funeral Home, because they're going to treat you like family. And you can't go wrong when time is needed. But don't wait. Get out there and go talk to these folks. I just want to say thank you guys for coming in today. It's great to see y'all. Big wave out.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah,
Thanks
and you
for
guys have a
having us.
great day. Tune in to us more in the future as we get more news coming your way. This week we'll obviously be featuring stuff from the 9/11. Interesting article. You should take a look. We've got one of our very own writers who is standing atop one of the Twin Towers with a photo from New York City. It'll be an interesting read. And thanks to everybody from Bruington, Jenkins, Sturgeon Funeral Home, and Alexander. You guys have a great day.